Old Reliable, the story of a dependable model of a durable prototype, on this episode of Toy Train Tips and Tricks. Hello again, this is Mike with another episode of Toy Train Tips and Tricks. In 1948, Lionel Trains made a huge splash with the introduction of its first diesel model, the number 2333 EMD F3 diesel, in Santa Fe and New York Central colors. Pleased with the success, Lionel returned to EMD for inspiration in 1949 and introduced a model of the EMD 1000 horsepower NW2 switcher, once again lettered for Santa Fe, although the catalog showed otherwise. These new switchers appeared in both the O-gauge line as the number 622 and in the O27 product line as the 6220. Other than the numbers, the models were identical. For a modeler in 1949, these models were great. They were scale proportioned, featured die-cast frames and wire handrails, 3-position reverse units, and operating couplers and headlights at each end. The NW2 was also a contemporary model. EMD had been producing the popular NW2 for America's railroads since 1939, and they were still rolling off the assembly line when Lionel's first models hit the store shelves in late 1949. Lionel's early models also featured a mechanical bell that rang automatically as the locomotive moved back and forth around the track. However, with no on-off switch, the bell was not particularly popular with parents, especially after a New Year's Day hangover, and many examples are found today with the bells removed or mutilated beyond repair. Lionel's number 622 and 6220 NW2 switchers also had a top-secret feature. While not promoted in the Lionel catalog, these models were the first to receive Lionel's Magna traction, testing the feature for full-scale rollout in 1950. Another lesser-known fact is that Lionel's NW2s were not the first such models for 3-rail O-gauge. In 1948, General Models Corp. Produced an NW2 in both 2-rail and 3-rail O-gauge, in both kit and ready-to-run versions. The 3-rail models featured a 7-pole DC motor with a worm drive, sprung equalized wheels, and a directional headlight that was controlled via the 3-position reversing mechanism. These undecorated, highly detailed models sold for $35 in ready-to-run form, or for about $450 in today's currency. Photos have surfaced, allegedly from 1948, that show an NW2 on the Lionel showroom layout in New York. Some speculate that this model may have been a General Models NW2 that Lionel had acquired for study. Others suggest it was just a pre-production Lionel version. The photos are not clear enough for a positive identification. Either way, like Lionel's later streamlined passenger cars and 6464 boxcars, Lionel may have been spurred into action on the NW2 by competition from a smaller rival. The NW2 was not featured in the 1951 catalog as train production was curtailed in favor of Defense Department contracts with the start of the Korean conflict, but the model returned in 1952 in the form of the number 623 Santa Fe without the mechanical bell, and the highly prized number 624 Chesapeake in Ohio. Other than the mechanical bell, both models carried on with Magna traction and all of the premium features found on the 622 and 6220. From this point forward, NW2s were usually marketed as O27 diesels, despite the 3-digit number. In 1954, the blue and orange 6250 Seaboard NW2 joined the lineup, and this was the last 4-digit NW2 of the post-war era, and also the last to sport the premium features of the original 1949 models. Around this time, the popularity of toy trains in general began to slowly decline, and Lionel had to adjust to the new economic realities of the market. In 1955, that meant a redesign of the NW2 in the form of the number 600 Missouri, Kansas, Texas, and the number 610 Erie versions. The die-cast frames were replaced by sheet metal, the wire handrails were replaced by stamped steel handrails incorporated into the frame and on the ends of the models only. The AAR-type trucks were replaced by non-prototypical EMD Blomberg trucks, as on the F3 and GP7 models. These models still sported 3-position reverse units, but now without the plastic skirting on the underframe, exposing the E-unit. The models feature operating disc-type couplers on each end, but the coupler on the cab end is prone to catch on the metal footboard, causing uncoupling. The most common solution is a rubber band wrapped around the coupler shaft, making the coupler inoperable. All simulated glass was removed, including the headlight lenses, and both headlights were removed. The only add-on details that survived were the simulated horn and bell. With redesigned motors and a lighter chassis, these little switchers are known to be very speedy, often relying on their magnetraction to keep them from flying off 027 curves. In 1956, the red and black number 601 Seaboard model appeared, which was nearly identical to the 1955 models, except the underframe skirting reappeared. In 1957, the orange and blue number 611 Jersey Central kept the skirting, but lost its 2 operating couplers, but gained a front headlight. With a few exceptions, such as the number 617 Santa Fe of 1963, perhaps the best of the post-1955 NW2s, even sporting an operating horn, the rule of thumb from 1955 to the end of the post-war period was removing details and features. 3-position reverse units became 2-position. Metal couplers became plastic. Horns and bells disappeared. Reverse units appeared on the tops of the diesels instead of hidden below. The number 634 Santa Fe of 1963 to 1966 was even reduced to a single drive axle for power and required added weight just to pull a 3 to 4 car train. So before purchasing a post-war NW2 model, especially one with a sheet metal frame, check the features and the drive and beware of what you are purchasing. Lionel's NW2 soldiered on into the MPC era, where the model regained a bit of its dignity right from the start. Leading 1970s number 1082 Yard Boss set was a blue Santa Fe NW2, which, still lacking operating couplers, at least had its headlight and a 3-position reverse unit back. Slowly, MPC's NW2s regained their ornamental horns and bells and red classification lights. Headlights were again standard issue, and by 1980, some separate sales switchers had regained their operating couplers. Oddly, by 1976 and throughout the rest of the MPC era, Lionel began referring to its models as SW1s, a smaller and less powerful switcher than the NW2. As the 1980s moved into the 1990s, Lionel's NW2 received another makeover. Now sporting twin can motors, a new AAR-inspired truck design, and an improved pilot, modern NW2s looked and operated the best they had since the original post-war designs disappeared in 1955. But these little switchers weren't finished yet. In 2022, Lionel gave their NW2 models the complete makeover, reviving all of their original details, plus adding operating smoke, remote electrocouplers, and even Lionel's command control. After 8 decades of production, Lionel's NW2 models are still thrilling 3-rail operators. In the real world, EMD wrapped up production of its NW2s in 1949, with more than 1,100 of the models produced. These were followed by some 1,200 similar-looking 1,200 horsepower SW7, SW9, and SW1200 models made through 1964. NW2s and their look-alike cousins could be found on nearly every major railroad or short line and on many industrial railways. Like the Lionel models, EMD's NW2s were both popular and durable, with many surviving in everyday service with their original owners through the 1980s and beyond, and with second, third, or fourth owners well into the 2000s. More than 24 of the models survive today on display, in museums, and even still operating on a few tourist lines. It's highly unlikely that the designers at EMD or Lionel could have imagined in 1949 that the NW2 would still be surviving and even thriving into the 21st century. But the appeal of durability and reliability never goes out of style, and such is the case with the NW2. I hope that you have enjoyed this video as much as I enjoyed making it, and if so, please like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and tell your friends and neighbors, and leave a comment about your favorite NW2 switcher. Until next time, keep the trains running and the switcher switching, and we'll catch you next time with more toy train tips and tricks.